we are gonna now what we need to do before we can actually get into managing things within Salesforce app, like the data management or permissions management and automating stuff. So before I get into all these things or customizing things, the first thing that we have to do is we just have to understand the architecture, and we'll have to understand the components which actually make this entire Salesforce application, right? So this application that we have here, the Salesforce app, this comprises of a few small components, and we are going to understand those components, all right, and how they are related to each other. Now, once we start understanding that part, we will be able to do everything else, right? So all customization, controlling permissions, everything becomes easy then, right? So we are going to start talking about the Salesforce architecture now, right? We are going to understand, what all components are there and how they are connected with each other. All right. So before I start talking about Salesforce, I will just talk about MVC. How many of you have heard of MVC? Just tell me yes or no. Or people who know what is MVC, please tell me what is MVC. How many of us know what is MVC? Have you heard of MVC? Some of you say yes, some say no. Fine. MVC is basically just a small framework. Okay. A framework for app design. Okay, and this framework has got 3 layers. This is a framework for application design, and this is a framework which has got 3 layers. What are those 3 layers? Obviously M, V and C. Now what does M mean, what does V mean, and what does C mean here? So M stands for model, view, controller. I see some of you are already aware of this full form, model, view, controller. But now what is this model, what is view, what is controller? These are 3 different layers of the application. All right. So it's going to be pretty much like this. An application with 3 layers. Okay. This can be model, this can be view, and this can be control. Alright, so it has got 3 layers. Now what do we have in each layer? Model basically has got the database. Okay, model refers to the database. View refers to the user interface, the front end UI. Controller refers to the set of logics or programs. Alright, so there are 3 layers. In the model layer, we have got the database. In the view layer, we have got the front-end user interfaces, the front end of the application, all right, all the UI, and controller layer has got all the logics. Got it? So most of these web applications are actually built on this kind of a framework. Most of the web applications. Take take an example of Facebook. When you log in into Facebook, Facebook is what? That's also an application, right? What do you see? You get to see a UI. You actually interact through the user interface, right? So the page that you actually land upon, that's a part of the view layer. Okay. When you open Facebook, what do you see? You basically see the front page or the front end of the application, right? Is that page the only thing that the application has got? No. That page is connected to the database, right? It shows you the list of friends, photographs, all these things. All this information is basically stored somewhere in the database, right? That's the reason why it's able to show you all that information, all your photographs that you uploaded, all the videos that you uploaded, all the status updates that you made. All that information is stored somewhere. Okay, that is actually stored in this layer. Okay, So this front end is connected through the database. Got it? All right. Now, if I have a database and if I have a user interface, now I have to have some logic to control what from the, because database will have a lot of data, right? It's going to have a lot of information. Out of that big chunk of information, what information is going to be visible on the UI, that is controlled by the controller. So controller has got the logic that what data will be displayed. Okay. So controller controls the logic. Okay. So this is actually controlling the logic that what data is going to be displayed, what will happen when the user clicks on a certain button, what will happen when the user opens up the page. Got it? What will happen when you add a friend, what will happen when you click on a friend request send, things like that. All right. I'm just trying to use this example so that you guys can even easily relate to that. So there has to be some part of the application which has got all these instructions written, right? Otherwise, how does the application know? How does the page know that when someone comes and clicks on add friend, I'll have to go and send a notification to that person. What is that? That's basically the program or the set of instructions. Correct? So we see that our Facebook has got 3 layers. Similarly, Salesforce also has got 3 layers. And Salesforce also, when you log in into the account, you basically see a front page, a user interface, right? Now that user interface is obviously connected to the backend database. We have got a lot of customer related information which is stored in the backend, which is actually displayed in the front end. All right. Now, there has to be some set of instructions or some program written somewhere which is actually controlling the pages or the behavior of the buttons, or what data is going to come on the page, what will happen when I click on a delete button, what will happen when I click on a new button. That all is controlled by the controller grid. Alright. So basically we are having 3 layers, and most of these web applications, take any web application, take all these online e-commerce portals or stuff like that, most of them are built on MVC framework. Alright. So definitely we'll need to have a front end UI for the users, okay, to view the things. We'll need to have a database where all the data is stored, and we'll need to have a layer where all the programs and all the instructions are written. Okay, so the entire application is controlled by the instructions written on this layer. All right. Okay. So Salesforce is also built on this particular framework, MVC framework. So that's the first thing. So basically, first thing that we need to understand that we have 3 layers. Database is in the model layer, view, okay, basically the user interface, the one that you get to see, and this is the set of instructions and programs, whatever you say, that's all written in control. Alright, so there are these 3 layers. Now, as I said, Salesforce gives you the option of customizing the applications. Alright, so with Salesforce, it's not that whatever application they have given, we always have to work with that. We have got the option of customizing the application, and we have got the option of building our own application. So we can actually do both these things. We can customize the applications. If we do not like the ones that have been provided by Salesforce, we can actually go ahead and customize them. We can create our own applications as well. Okay? You can create a complete new application of your own, and we are actually going to do that. Okay, we'll start working on that today itself, creating a new application, right? So I'll come to that part, creating application, a little later. Before that, let's understand this. So in case you want to customize anything, or you want to build a new application, you need to be familiar with these 3 layers, pretty much clearly. Because if I am talking about customization, let's say I just want to customize a certain logic, okay? I need to understand that where the changes need to be made, which layer I'm talking about. First of all, I'll have to identify which layer I'm talking about, and then only I'll be able to make changes to the things. Alright. Right. So let me, just um, give you a couple of random questions, ask you a couple of random questions, and you guys tell me if I have to achieve that, which model, right? Okay, I see some people suggesting view here, but it is not view because I'm talking about adding a field which did not exist in the database. Okay, so let me just make that part clear. So I'm talking about a field, second phone number field, which was already not there. So I'll have to go and add this in the database, right? So something which did not exist in the database, I'm actually trying to add that into the database. So obviously the changes need to be made on the database first, and if you want to display that on the page, then you also have to make changes on the view. But first of all, this needs to be added on in the model. Correct? Okay. Now, one more question. If phone number is not provided, do not create record. Give error. Now I want this thing to happen. I say that whenever a user is trying to create a record, account record, and does not give a phone number, I want to throw an error. The record should not get created. Phone number should be a must. This is obviously controlling. Here everyone's answer is correct because obviously there's one thing, there was one layer only which was left, right? But again, look into this. This is basically the logic part of it. So here I'm neither talking about changing the database. I'm not talking about changing the UIs. I'm just talking about implementing a logic. That if this happens like this, don't do this, or if this happens, do this. Correct? That is it. So now you will start understanding that, okay, fine, what are we talking about? Are we talking about making changes in the database? Are we talking about making changes on the UI, or are we talking about customizing the logics? Alright, so there are these three layers, and we can actually control things, or we can actually edit things on different layers. Exactly depending on our requirement, we are gonna do this. Now, this first requirement, if I talk about this, do not display the facts field on account page. Okay. Instead of this, if the company says that I don't need the facts field, just delete the facts field, then definitely it would have been in the model way, right? But if we have that, okay, fine, I don't want to make changes in the database, let the facts field be there in the database, but don't display it on the page. That's a change in the view. Got it? Okay. Now, uh, currently we are going to look into these things as different entities, but eventually you will realize that all these things are connected also. Right? Initially, I want you to think about these in different layers, but at a later point of time, as you guys keep on working on it, you will realize that everything is again related to the other stuff. All right. The logic is being run from the UI, or the field that is being created in the database needs to be displayed on the UI. So later on you will see that things are related also. Fine. But we are not getting into that part right now. We are just trying to understand things in individual layers for now, so that we have a good understanding about three different layers. All right. Okay. Now, so we understand that we have got three layers. Now let's understand what are the components we have in each layer. What do we have in model? Basically, model has got database. Database is what? Collection of data tables. What is a database? Database is collection of the database tables. So in the back end, there is something like this. A big database, and the database has got multiple database tables. Like, let's say there's a table for storing all the accounts, and there's a table for storing all the campaigns. There can be one for storing leads. opportunities, contacts. This way, there are all the tables there in the backend database or in the model layer. We have got multiple database tables or data tables. All right. So this has got database tables or data tables. Okay, but we don't use the word data table for we don't use this word data table in Salesforce. Instead, we are going to use a word object. Okay, this is referred to as an object in Salesforce. So when I say object, I am basically referring to data table actually. All right. So instead of calling it a table, we are going to call it an object. And I want you guys to make sure that you guys also use the term object instead of data table and all that, because that's a good habit, because that's the terminology which we use in Salesforce. So it's basically called an object. But at the back end, actually, it is a data table only. All right. So that's for your understanding and my understanding. It's a data table only. Just that they have used a different name. Some in some applications they use a terminology called entity, right? So that's just the thing that we use for it. But actually, ultimately, it's a data table. All right. So we are going to use the word object for it. So these are all objects. So there is an account object, there is a contact object, campaigns object, opportunities object, lead object, all these things are there. All right. Now, each table is going to be having multiple fields. Let's say 1, 2, 3, 4 columns, right? So let's say when I talk about account has got multiple columns. Account name, account phone number, fax number, industry, website. There's so many columns, right? So that's another thing that we have. Then we have columns, right? So within the database, the other thing that we are dealing with is columns. We don't call it columns here. We would rather call them fields. Okay. So an object basically refers to a data table in the backend. A field refers to a column in the backend. Okay. So that's what we have. So in the database, primarily we have got objects and fields. Got it? So model layer has got objects and fields, and obviously the data, the records. Okay. So this is what we have in the model layer. Then we come into the view layer. So in the view layer, we have got tabs. In the front end view, we have got tabs. I think we have already seen the tabs. So let me just go back and look into the tabs one more time. Give me one quick moment. Okay. So in the view layer, what do we see? What all different components are we dealing with? We are dealing with these tabs. Okay, these are tabs, right? We click on the tab. So tabs, Basically what we have here, uh, a tab is basically a button to connect to a page, right? It's more like a button which will actually, let you connect to another page, or move from one page to the other page. That's what we have in the view. Then we have got apps. Okay, what is an app here? We've seen that we have got apps. What is an app here? Apps are these apps, right? At the top right corner, we see these apps. An app is basically just a collection of tabs. Okay, a few tabs put together actually makes an app. That's what it is. If you notice, now in the sales app, and there are a few tabs which are visible to us. Let's go and change it to marketing, and you will see the collection of the tabs actually changes. Okay, so app is just a user interface. Okay, just one more user interface with a different set of tabs. That's it. Nothing else. All right. So that's the simple concept about app. So what we do in an app, we just put all the tabs which are relevant to that particular app. We put all those tabs in that particular app. Correct. That basically makes an app. All right. Clear. Okay. And obviously we have got pages, individual pages, right? So when you click on let's say contact, and then you click on new, there's a page which opens up, right, where you can create the record. Then when you click on one of the existing contact, there's a page where you can see the record, right? So these are basically the pages. All right. So we have got, in the front end, we have got the tabs, apps, and pages. In the back end, we have got objects, fields, and records. Okay, that's what a database will have. Database will have tables, columns, and rows. Right? That's exactly what we have in the database. In the front end, we have got apps, we have got tabs, and we have got pages. Right? Controller layer, has, as I told you, there's program or instruction written inside the controller layer. So talking about the controller layer, getting into the controller layer or customizing that part is something which we'll do after a little more time. After a few more sessions, we are going to get into the controller layer. Right now, we are not actually talking, going to get into the controller layer. So we will continue to discuss things on model and view for now, and controller layer we will get into in a few more sessions. All right. Okay. So now, in order to understand, these components a little more, we are gonna do a small project here. We're gonna, build a small application, right? And by building the application, we are gonna use all these components, right? And once we use all these components in building that application, the concept of how these components are and how they are connected to each other will become clear to you guys. Right? So what we're going to do, we are just going to create a small application, and in that application we're going to use all these components. Right? So once we use all these components in building an application, obviously you guys will start understanding what is the role of a component and how that is connected to the other one. Right? So we'll take a small scenario. See, um, in Salesforce, by default, I have the option of managing my customers and sales and marketing activities. Right? So Salesforce, provides you with an app which actually lets you track your sales and marketing activities and your customers and the details and everything. Right? So that part is fine. What we need here, we basically need here an application which can let us we basically need an application here which can let us manage all the projects that we are working on. Let's say we are a company, we take projects and we work on the projects, right? And what I want is, I want to track all my projects. I need, an application where I can manage all the projects. Which project is, going on, who is working on which project and all that stuff. And for doing that, I feel that, Salesforce is a good place and I should be able to do that. But by default, Salesforce does not give you any uh, app or any such setup where you can manage projects. However, I told you Salesforce lets you create your own applications, right? So what we're going to do, we are basically going to build a small application which will allow us to manage our own projects within Salesforce, right? So that project management app is what we're going to create. Right? So our requirement is pretty simple. We want to manage projects in Salesforce, and we are going to build an app which will let us manage the projects within Salesforce. That's it. All right. Now, for building this project management app, let us understand what, first of all, let me just give you a brief of what we need to do. Okay. So first of all, we need to figure out what all data we need to store. When I say managing projects, I am obviously talking about tracking all the information about the projects that we are working on, right? So first of all, we'll have to, plan about the data structure for this project management app. Correct? What all data I need to store. So first of all, we decide on that part. Then I'll have to think about what all pages or user interfaces I need to show. Fine. We'll have to get those. We'll have to create tabs for those pages, and then we'll have to create an app and include all those tabs in that particular app. So let's say there are 5 pages. Let's say there are 5 objects which I develop for this project management app. For each object, I'll need 1 page, right? And for going to the pages, I'll need the tabs. So if I have 5 objects, I'll need 5 tabs in the front end. And then what I can do, I can create a new app. In that app, I can put all those 5 tabs. My project management app will be ready. All right. So that's how we are actually going to go about it. But when we start making it, we are going to go about it step by step. All right. So the first thing is plan out the data structure. It's simply, figuring out what all data we need to store. All right, and this is something where I would need your help. All right, so I want you guys to suggest me what should be my data structure. All right, so we are going to create the data structure. We will not create the data structure in Salesforce because that's something you do not start building an application straight away. So first thing that you need to do is you just need to do a bit of planning outside Salesforce before you start doing things in Salesforce. All right. So what we will do here is okay. So this is what we have here. Uh, to plan the data structure, what you can do, you can actually do it on an Excel spreadsheet. It's the best utility to build a data structure. All right, or you can do it in MS Word or anything else, whatever you feel comfortable with. But I would still prefer Microsoft Excel is a good thing to start with. All right, so what we're going to do here, we're just going to first of all decide on the data structure for this project management app. Right. Okay, so we have got to first of all figure out what all objects I need. All right. First thing that we are gonna start with is figure out what all objects I need or what all data I need to store in the database. Correct. So what is the first object that we guys think we need? What's the first one that we need? It's a project management app. So what's the first one that we need? Obviously project. So, if I'm actually building an app to manage projects, so what is the first object that we need? Obviously, a project object. Okay. All right. So first of all, let me list down the project object here. Okay. Now for this project object, this is an object, right? It's a table basically. Now in this object, I'll need to track a few fields. So what are fields you guys think we should be tracking under this? What are fields? If this is a table, what all fields do you think we need to track for this? Okay, maybe an ID or name for the project. Okay. I see start date. Okay, I'll take that. Okay. End date or expected end date. Let's put it that way. Actual end date. Okay. What else? Okay, let's assume that these projects are basically coming from the external clients, right? So we take up projects from the clients and then we work on those projects. I'll put a budget on this. The total cost of the project or something like that. Anything else? Let's say a project manager, the person who is actually handling the project. Anything else? Okay, see project status. Okay, let's say the status also of the project. Okay, fine. So we'll just keep it here. These many fields, let them be here. All right. Now, for each field that we have, so let's just freeze it here for now. I'll add more fields. In case we feel that we need more fields, we're just going to add that. Okay. While trying to create or think about other objects in case we feel the need of adding a few more fields for this, we're going to add it. Right. Okay. So now the next thing that you need to do is just beside the fields corresponding to the fields you would need to enter the type of data that gets into that field. So what type of data is going to get into that particular field? Like name or ID can be a text, start date is going to be a date field, end date and actual end date are also going to be date fields, budget can be currency field, project manager can be text for now. I'll change it later on as you guys start understanding things. Status of the project can be a pick list. Pick list is basically a drop down where the end user will have the option to choose from. Alright, I'll just make it a pick list. Okay, so I'm done with my first object. Okay, so this is the first object, and we are thinking about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 fields here. All right. Okay. Now, what's the next object? What is the other object that you can think of? Apart from project, what other object we need here? Apart from project, what other object you guys think we need? Okay. I told you that these are going to be the projects coming from the clients, correct? So don't you think I need a a client object here? I need to track information about of the clients as well, right? So I need one more object called clients. Right. So the next object can be the client's object. Okay. Now this client object will have details of the client. What details of the client do you think we need to track? What all fields are we talking about here? Name, ID, website, phone number, fax number. You know, this part is simple, right? Okay. So we'll have a few fields for the client, like name of the client, website, phone number, fax number, uh, street, city, state, country, postal code. Okay. Quite a few things that we have here. Okay. So here we are thinking of one more field, which is the client's object. Sorry, one more object, and we have got a few fields here for this client object. All right. So the same activity needs to be done. We'll just need to go ahead and figure out what is the data type. Then go into this particular field type, this particular field. So name will be text. This can be a hyperlink, a URL. Phone number can be a phone field. Fax is also going to be a phone field. Street address can be text. City, state, country, all three of them can be pick lists. And postal code is going to be postal code will be text again. Some countries postal code is alphanumeric, so I'll keep it text because text can take a number as well. Okay, so that's the second object. What is the third object that we need? Apart from client, what is the third object that we need here? What is the third object that we need? Think from the client perspective. Okay, we say, when I say that we are going to track clients, what do you think you need people from the client side? You need to store information of the people who you will need to talk to. And you just have got the client name, industry, website, and all that stuff. Whatever. Don't you need to store information of the people? The contact persons from the client side. Who will you talk to regarding your projects? Who will you send your bills to for the project? We need people, we need a table where we can actually store information of the contact persons from the client. Yes or no? Do we need that? This is your application. You guys will suggest whatever you say. I'm going to create. So this is your project management application. And do you need an object where you can track information of the people who are working on the client, people who are employees of my client? Correct? Because if I take a project from a client, I'll have to talk to some person in their company to get that project, to get my money paid for that project, right? So that's very important. So maybe one more object called, I can call it contacts, or give it a slightly different name, call it a client POC, okay, point of contact on the client side. And here, what information you think we should be putting? What's the type of information that goes into this? Okay, name is obviously something that we are going to put, but should I put just one name field or should I have two name fields, first name, last name? Shall we have just one name or first name, last names, two fields? Whenever you are storing information about individuals, as a good practice, try to create two fields, first name, last name. All right. This will help you to send automated emails and all. While you are sending emails, at that time you can actually sometimes you might want to merge only first or last name, right? So that's where it helps a lot. Okay. So we should have two fields here, first name, last name. Apart from this, email, phone, and what else? First name, last name, email, phone, and maybe a mobile number, date of birth you want. What is the role of this person? Okay, this can be text, this can also be text, this can be email, this can be phone number, this can be phone number field, this is a date field, and this can be a pick list. I don't know why we are tracking the date of birth, but I just felt like adding it. Maybe some birthday greetings you can send to the client POC to ensure that he releases the payment on time. Yeah, so that's what we have. So we have talked about three objects here. Okay, we have already talked about, or we have planned for three different objects here. There are a few more that we have to do. Okay. At least two more objects we need here. One is basically the, okay, so there's one which we need to store the employees or the consultants. Okay, so I need one more object which is going to be the consultant object, and this consultant object will basically have information about the people who are working on those projects. So if I have a list of projects and if I have a team of consultants who are working on it, I would definitely want to track the list of team here, and at the same time I would also be interested in tracking who is working on what project. All right, so I'll basically leave this part up to you to think about these two things. There are two things which we have to track: consultants and who's working on what project. All right, so these two things still need to be done. I will just leave this thing for you to figure out. You have got the initial data structure. I want you to think about this data structure and try to if you can think of a few more fields, you can actually try to do that. All right, so that's what I would leave you with, and think of the other two things. Create objects for other two things: consultants and who's working on what project. How and where are you going to store that information? All right, that's going to be your activity. So I'll continue the discussion here tomorrow. So we are already